delay. I'm in the Otter's den, as you can see. So family things going on. So here I am. But I was blocked by Brave browser. I was blocked by Opera. And they switched, right. One blocked the camera, one blocked the mic. The other one, it was Tor browser. They wouldn't even do Restream. And finally, I went on to the one I really, really disliked, which is Safari. It's almost as bad as Google or Chrome. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. But here we are. We made it, right? So I'm going to go into the chat now and see if I can see how many are on. Nobody yet. So I'm going to prep what it is that I would like to discuss tonight. And I think you guys are going to like this one tonight. I'm going to have to consolidate, squish. That's a technical term, by the way. Squish. I got to squish this window, that window, and the other window because I'm going to read a little bit. I don't like to read a lot on, the show because sometimes it gets boring. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make it engaging because it's very, very good news. I'm surprised to tell you that things are happening fast. So many people say that, right? Because we all want things to happen. Maybe happen isn't the right word. Change. Let's say that. I know Bathhouse Barry made his whole campaign one year on change. It wasn't the kind of change that the American people really wanted. I'll tell you that. Most of the American people. Most of the American people wanted unity among Americans, and he brought something completely different. But let me see if I can, there we go. So, oh, wow, they're spamming us on, looks like they're spamming us on, what is it, YouTube? Or maybe it's just a demo. Never mind, it's a demo. They're giving me a demo. So I want you guys to see exactly what I'm seeing, but I think you can already do that. So I'm just going to go back to looking at the comments on Restream here. So we're going out on Facebook. We're going out on the KCYP, the city, Facebook, the city, YouTube. We're going out on Bitcoin Otter, YouTube. We're going out on Bitcoin Otter, Facebook, and Christopher Ott, Facebook. Now, to all of you who are watching, thank you very much. We have I think, if not the greatest show of all time, that's Donald Trump, right? Then we have something that's really going to be interesting. So I'll wait till a few of us get on. But for those of you that are watching this in not real time, I'm going to get into it pretty quick. I don't want to make you wait or anything like that. So one of the things that I'll do to set the table for this is so many of us have been expecting not only, political change, let's say domestic change, but what we really need besides God himself, okay, Jesus, we need you. However, sometimes we got to do things. Barry, good to see you, Barry. Sometimes we got to do things, I won't say completely on our own because we really can't do anything on our own. Without God, I don't even want to think about that. But what I'm getting at is this. One of the biggest changes we require if we ever want to become a great nation again is monetary reformation. Now, we need reformation in many things. Morality, we need to reform our, let's say, judicial system, our whole political system, all that. But you know what the root of all that is? The root of all of those political problems, yes, it's godlessness. I'm sure you guessed that. But let's stick to this dimension. What manifests in this dimension that the Bible calls the root of all evil? It's not money. A lot of us will say money, it's money, it's money. No. The root of all evil is the love of money. And the people who succeed in Hollywood, music, everyday business, your business place, my business place, right? and especially politics. Those people are ate up by the love of money. So the more love of money they have, the more evil they're capable of, right? The higher they go. The higher they go. Now, we thankfully, we're blessed. We had an outsider step in. He was recruited, I believe, sincerely believe, he was recruited by the U.S. military, was Donald Trump. And everybody hates him on the inside in the political realm. But we, outside of that, those of us that are thinking, recognize one of our own. Not that I'm a billionaire, but that he's an American, that he's looking out for the Americans. He's not looking out for the banks. Hence, they hate him. So what I'd like to go on is a discussion here. Now, I don't want to make this too long because I don't know how many people are going to come on. Usually people come on a little bit later, but we can always refresh them, right, Barry? And you may have even seen this, Barry. I don't know. This guy's new to me, okay? I hope he didn't cut and paste on X, but he calls himself the Debriefing 17, okay? Now, we all know what 17 means. It's the 17th letter of the alphabet. It's Q. If you are not familiar with the Q drops, send me a message on Facebook, and I will fill you in. I'll send you all the links you want. And this guy, like I said, I just bumped into him on X. He wrote, and it's I guess sort of long, and this is one of the things, like, I don't usually like to read on I guess it's not the air, but on the what do you call it? It's the platforms. But here's something that you guys are going to enjoy, and by reading it, I can take away what I would believe to be probably errors. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. Again, this is, and I followed this guy as soon as I bumped into him. This guy calls himself the Debriefing 17, and it's, if you want to look him up on X, it is at the Debriefing 17. He capitalizes the T and the D. I don't know if that helps or hinders. Okay, so this post says this, and it was dropped yesterday. This person dropped this yesterday. It says, and we've known this for a while. Let me preface this. We've known for over a year now that the Treasury has taken under its wing, right? Under its wing, the Federal Reserve. Now, one might think that that's like, cutting out someone's tumor and putting it in your own body. It could be. But if you neuter the Fed, if you make them inert, if you will, I think you'd be all right. And I think that's exactly what they did. Let me carry on here. This is what the Debriefing 17 wrote yesterday. The Treasury is doing the Fed's job. Nobody asked the Fed. On Tuesday, the U.S. Treasury announced it was doubling the size of its long-term bond buyback program starting September 9. Within hours, $820 billion flowed into gold and silver. Time out. This is the Otter again. I don't know, and I know you're probably thinking this, Barry, and anybody else who's listening, future time, was that paper gold, paper silver, or was it actual gold, actual silver? Yet to be determined. Anyway, gold hit record highs just on the news. Because remember, as I just read, this isn't going to happen until September 9th. Here's what happened. Back to the article or back to the post. Here's what happened and why the market moved that fast. What a buyback is. The U.S. government borrows money by selling bonds. When it sells a 30-year bond, it's promising to pay you back in 30 years plus interest. A buyback is when the government buys those bonds back before they mature. It goes into the market and says, I owe you in 2054, says the government, but I'll pay you now. When the government buys its own long-term bonds, it puts cash into the market and pulls long-term debt out. That pushes long-term interest rates down. Are we getting it? It's percolating now, right? It's the same mechanical effect as what the Federal Reserve does when it buys bonds, what they call quantitative easing. So normally, this is me again. Normally, the Fed does this by quantitative easing. They don't, to my limited knowledge, I don't know that it buys bonds back. Maybe it does. But either way, it either buys the bonds back, which lowers the rates, or it just prints money. Why buy the bonds back? Just print more debt. I think that's what they usually do. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, except this isn't the Federal Reserve doing it, says the debriefing 17. This is the Treasury Department. Now we knew this, right? We knew the Treasury had taken over pretty much the Fed, if not taken it over, but overshadowed it authoritatively. Okay? So why that matters? Managing interest rates across the yield curve has traditionally been the Federal Reserve's job. The Fed is supposed to be independent. It sets the interest rates based on inflation and employment data, not on what the White House wants. Time out again. The Federal Reserve, as evil as an entity as you could ever find, claims to do these things, but it does not. What does it do? It panders to the banking system, to the detriment of you and me. Let me carry on. The Treasury Department reports directly to the president. What does that mean? It means those yahoos in Congress don't get the report before the president gets it. Now, in a perfect world, we would have real representatives in Congress. We do not. They represent pharmaceutical companies, they represent oil companies, they represent banks, they represent anybody who pays them because they are prostitutes. Now, in the political sense, and perhaps even otherwise, I digress. The Treasury Department reports directly to the president. The Secretary of the Treasury is a cabinet member. That's serious, right? When the Treasury buys bonds, it is the executive branch managing interest rates. Let's take another time out. What does this mean? It means that the only direct government branch, direct election of the United States people is in the executive branch. That person was directly elected by the United States citizens. That person that we elected now, is managing interest rates. Going back to the Post. Same mechanism, different chain of command. And the Treasury just doubled the program. Now, add everything else that happened this week. This wasn't the only thing the Treasury did. Sunday, Treasury published the proposed rules for how stable coins, which are digital dollars, will be regulated. Every stablecoin issuer in America must be licensed. Every foreign stablecoin that wants to reach American consumers must come from a country that has a deal with the United States. And every licensed stablecoin issuer must hold U.S. Treasury bonds as reserve. Why is this important? I'll continue. Read that last part again. I won't. The government just created a new class of mandatory bond buyers. If you want to issue digital dollars, you must buy government debt to back them. Let me repeat that. If you want to issue digital dollars, you must buy government debt to back them. If you want to issue them. Monday, that was Sunday. Monday, the Treasury International Capital data showed that foreign governments sold $29 billion in Treasury bills in June alone. We were hemorrhaging treasury bills. Meaning all these governments, because of their own financial woes, due to the same cabal that owns the Federal Reserve, the international criminal banking cartel, they're in dire straits as well. Look at Japan. Go no further. So $29 billion in our debt. If all that debt comes back to us, what is it? We're swimming in debt. We're drowning in debt. Our economy goes down the crapper. But there's a plan. There has always been a plan. June alone, $29 billion from foreign governments. Our debt was sold. It's coming back to us. The traditional buyers of American debt, foreign central banks are leaving. Let me read that again because it didn't seem to make sense. They are the traditional buyers of American debt, foreign central banks. They're leaving. Why are they leaving? Well, could be a few reasons. This is me. Time out. This is me. Why would they leave the market of probably, if there's any debt that's worth anything in the world, it's going to be the United States debt because we're the ones who work our asses off for everybody else in the world. So we would be the ones, if they were going to hold debt, and they have to for some reasons, there are financial reasons for that. If they're going to hold debt, it's ours. So it's not like they're going to dump our debt and buy somebody else's. That would be a losing proposition. So what are they doing? Why are they doing this? There's two scenarios in my mind. One, to destroy the American economy. Very possible. Very possible. The Federal Reserve has destroyed our economy who knows how many times, right? The 29 crash. They were part of the orchestration of World War II, along with the Khazarian Mafia. I guess what was it? The dot-com bubble. I don't know if that was them, but 2008 certainly was. So anyway, throughout history, the Federal Reserve has shown themselves to be our enemy. They are definitely our enemy. They're the enemy of the American people and the world. So that's one possibility. They wanted to destroy our economy. What's another possibility? Well, maybe they see this coming. Maybe they saw this coming. Well, they definitely saw it coming, but maybe they're going to try and take advantage of it. But let me read further on those lines. Monday, the Treasury International Capital data, we already went over that. $29 billion in Treasury bills were sold by foreign central banks. Tuesday, Treasury doubled the buyback program. The government is stepping in to buy its own bonds as the old buyers exit. How can the government feel so confident that we as the United States citizens, the people, would be able to afford buying back $29 billion in treasury bills that foreign governments are dumping? Well, I'll give you one word: tariffs. Okay? I'll give you another word: solid currency. Asset-backed, non-fiat currency. That's a term, but you know what I mean. So they doubled the buyback program. So now we're sucking up the debt. But what's the plan? We'll get to that. Also Tuesday, Treasury and the IRS proposed new rules restricting tax credits by immigration status. Yes. So, you're an illegal alien? Well, there goes your tax credit. How does this work? What do you mean, Otter? Give me an example. Here I am asking my own question. How would that work? Well, this is how I would imagine it works. You've got an illegal alien in the country. They want to stay in the country, so they drop a few anchor babies. Okay? Those anchor babies receive all the benefits you can imagine a United States citizen would actually receive. But not only is that the case, but let's say the illegal works in the workplace where Americans should be working. Oh, but Otter, they take the jobs that the American people don't want. Well, you know what? Sometimes the American people are going to want those jobs. Okay? That is a take that is worthy of The View. And we don't deal in the sewer the way the View does. So I know some of you people who don't really watch the show often might say something like that. I digress. Let's say that illegal alien does work. Don't you think that those 2 anchor babies, or 3 or 4, are going to reflect on their tax return? I do. There's a fallacy. It's just a fallacious, if you will, portion of the income tax law that states you can receive earned income tax credit. So in other words, you don't have to earn it. They'll just throw it at you. And that's what these people are doing. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 anchor babies, and they're receiving earned income tax credits. Yeah, no more. And did I sound like Phil Collins there for a bit? Anyway, last week, again, we're moving back to the article by the Debriefing 17 on X. If anybody else is here, anybody's on the, I'm trying to find out all the stuff we're on, now that I'm in here. I'm hoping I get on all those different things, but I can't see. Okay, yeah. So we should be going. I guess just a slow Thursday. But let me take a sip of my coffee here and move on. Last week, Congress banned, this is a beautiful one, everybody. This warms the cockles of my heart. Last week, Congress banned the Federal Reserve from issuing a digital dollar. The Fed cannot compete with the private stablecoin system that the Treasury is building. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go back to something earlier in this post. If you want to issue any stable coins, which will be equivalent to a US dollar digitally, you have to buy US Treasury bills, Treasury bonds. Okay? It says the government just created a new class of mandatory bond buyers. Wait a minute. People all over are going to be buying US debt. Maybe we don't need those foreign Federal Reserve banks to buy our debt. Bingo. If you want to issue digital dollars, is the new policy going forward, you must buy government debt to back them. This is in the beginning of this post, right? If you want to issue digital dollars, and the Federal Reserve dearly, dearly wants to issue digital dollars, don't they? Remember all that hubbub for years, decades? Digital dollar is coming. The centralized digital dollar is coming, and it will mean our doom. Well, you know what? We've avoided that. I'm telling you why. So if you want to issue digital dollars, you must buy government debt to back them. Now, this fits right in with this. Congress, now this is not just the executive branch. This is not just the person that we elected. This is Congress. These rats were sufficiently stimulated, incentivized to do something right for a change. Congress banned the Federal Reserve from issuing a digital dollar. So up here we read, if you want to issue digital dollars, no, Fed, you can't. You can't, Fed. Only licensed issuers of stablecoins, quote, digital dollars, can issue them. And it ain't you. You ain't getting a license, Fed. You're getting a kick in the ass, Fed. The Fed cannot compete with the private stablecoin system that the Treasury is building. Are they going to go through all the legal barriers, hoops, to destroy the Fed? No. Why? Kick them to the curb. You don't have to defeat them. They're defeated already. You don't have to destroy them. They're going to die on their own. They're going to wither on the vine. They're going to wither off the vine because they can't compete with the private stablecoin system that the Treasury is building. Also last week, FinCEN is a Treasury bureau, okay? And it killed the requirement for American companies to report who owns them. I'm going to be frank with you. I'm still the Otter, but I'm going to be honest. Let me use another word. I'm always honest, but let me use another word. Transparent. I don't know exactly how that works. And I don't know that it's a good thing, but apparently this guy thinks it is. American companies to report who owns them. I don't know that being transparent about who owns a company is a bad thing. I don't think it is. Anyway, let me carry on here. The same FinCEN, same bureau, same week, issued a record $125 million fine against UBS for not watching its own transactions closely enough. I don't know how that ties in, but UBS is a bank. So they were fined a record $125 million for not watching their own transactions. Well, they knew what their transactions were. They knew where they were going and coming from. But that's part of the scam. So they're actually being scammed. They're being stung for the scam that's been running for generations, since 1913. Maybe not UBS specifically, but the Federal Reserve System. The pattern. Here is what the Treasury did in 1 week. Wrote the rules for the digital dollar, created mandatory Treasury bond buyers through stablecoin reserve requirements. You want to issue a stablecoin? Do you have a license? Okay, you have a license. Did you buy American debt? Maybe. Did you? Okay, you did. So now you get to issue, using your license, a stablecoin. Ladies and gentlemen, remember when we discussed, and we have discussed it a lot, that we, the people, are not going to pay back that debt because it's not ours. It's all fraudulent. Okay? Oh, you want an example? How about those Somali daycare centers? Were there really kids leering there? What did they leer? Explain it to me. How did 0 children in a leering center leer anything? I don't think there was any leering going on there. I digress. So, it also, the Treasury did, doubled its own bond buyback program as foreign buyers left. So whatever the Federal Reserve did, traditionally, this was doubled by the Treasury. Yes, yes, and yes. Things are going to get better, ladies and gents. Things are going to get better. They issued the largest bank fine in its category's history. They killed the transparency rule for domestic companies. That, again, I don't know how that's a plus. But if you guys know or you know why, please enlighten me. What else did the Treasury do? Restricted tax benefits by citizenship status. So, ladies and gentlemen, all of those people that have been ripping us off for, so many years, right? All of those people are now not ripping us off so much anymore. Jay, you still here, Jay? I know you're here, Barry. I can't see on this the whatchamacallits. Now I just saw it on my phone. So I'm gonna my whatchamacallit is over there. So if you're throwing up comments on YouTube, I don't know that I'm seeing them. I don't know how to refresh this stuff. So let me throw this up like that. Now, okay. It looks like Jay, you and Barry are watching, listening, something of that sort. I hope this is good news to you guys. I don't know how it sounds dry, right? I mean, I'm reading about what the Treasury is doing, right? But you never know when you're going to be at a barbecue. You never know when you're going to be at a place and somebody's going to say, man, this economy sucks. Everything's going in the crapper. No good news. Gas prices. And much of that is true. But we can now point, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this guy on X is the Debriefing 17. Okay? Okay, no comments on YouTube that you've seen. Okay, thanks, Barry. I appreciate that feedback. So where I'm going with this is this. As Christians, we are ambassadors of Christ, right? Well, we are also ambassadors as Americans of the American way. What is the American way? We the people govern. So why don't we the people announce the success of part of the government we elected, or we consent to be governed by, which in this case is the U.S. Treasury. The Federal Reserve is nothing American. It is not federal. They just do that to fool people. They are not federal, and they have no reserves. So this is good news. Let me continue. So I'll go real quick. Doubled the buyback, issued the fine, killed a rule for domestic companies, restricted tax benefits by illegal aliens, and the IRS, which sits inside the Treasury, helped trace cartel money in a narco-terrorism case 2 weeks ago. I myself, and maybe you guys also, were wondering, hey, Sue keeps freezing. Is it just me? I don't know. I hope not. I am talking about some very sensitive stuff here today. And perhaps it's getting shadow banned of some sort. I'm not sure. But the IRS was something that we all knew was, yes, in the Treasury, but it had been co-opted by the Federal Reserve and was effectively, the IRS was the Gestapo wing of the Federal Reserve. You don't pay your taxes? Well, they take your furniture. That's it. You're done. You have to pay the Federal Reserve, which is not the government. Yeah, but my taxes, Otter, they pay for roads, they pay for... No, they don't. They pay for interest on the debt that you do not owe. I digress. So this guy says, here's what the Federal Reserve did in the same week. The Treasury's on the move, baby. The Treasury's making things happen for the American people. The Treasury in real time is saving our economy. I don't know if I'm overstating this or what. I doubt it. I don't know if I'm even coming across articulately so that we realize what these things mean. I don't know. Hey, Brian. Good to see you. It's me. Just so you know. So I don't know. Am I understating these things? I hope not. I hope everybody's understanding where this is going. So they're going to juxtapose what the Treasury did for you and me, saving our economy, to what the Federal Reserve did. So what did the Federal Reserve do last week? Nothing. I'm reading again from the Debriefing 17. Where is the Fed? The Federal Reserve is not writing the stablecoin rules. The Treasury is. The Federal Reserve is not chartering the stablecoin issuers. The OCC, a Treasury Bureau, is. Now, I'm familiar with the Office of Chief Counsel. I don't know what the heck the OCC is in the Treasury Bureau. I don't know that they have a chief. They have a secretary. So I'm not sure. The Federal Reserve is not managing long-term interest rates through buybacks. The Treasury is. The Federal Reserve is not enforcing anti-money laundering law. FinCEN, inside the Treasury, is. The Federal Reserve is not issuing sanctions. The OFAC, a Treasury Bureau, is. Anybody knows any of these acronyms, please throw them up there. because I don't know what the Office of something, right? AC. They are issuing sanctions. They are the ones who find UBS. The Federal Reserve is not setting the rules for the digital dollar. It is prohibited by law from even building one. Ladies and gentlemen, they're out. Remember, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. And it's not my idea, I have maintained that there will be a centralized Federal Reserve system continuing. But at some place, we're going to have our We the People off-ramp, and that place is there in the Treasury here and now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the golden age. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen next week. But when we untether, let me put it that way. When we decouple, untether, become free from, take the boot of the Federal Reserve off of our neck, we're going to prosper. Just think how much money is going to be injected into the U.S. economy when only one thing happens: the elimination of the income tax. The elimination of the income tax. Well, wait, Otter, those taxes, they do so much. No, they don't. But let me give you an example of why it's going to work. We just read that anyone who wants to issue a stablecoin, what effectively does this mean? It means the Federal Reserve has been usurped, overthrown. Their purpose will not stand because it is moot, inert, kaput, fiend. Do you understand? I don't know. I used a couple different languages. I'm very limited in my languages, but I want to get that across. The Federal Reserve will have no place in the new system. Yeah, they're going to worm their way in. They're going to try and do this and do that, but they will be severely limited. Why? Because every time they want to mess with our system, they're going to have to buy treasury bonds to do it. They're going to have to buy our debt. They're going to have to suck it up. Who's been sucking it up the whole time? We, the people. You, me. 2 jobs, 2 vehicles in the household, 2 insurance policies, right? You're buying 2 lunches a day instead of 1. You got to buy 2 wardrobes to suit up for work. Making sense? Now? Yeah, we sucked it up. Whenever they needed more, and they always need more. Remember that love of money? Oh, they have it bad. They got it bad, real bad. And we would always suck it up. Always. The American citizen had to suck it up. When they wanted to overthrow us, they threw illegal aliens at us. Who paid for that? You, me. Who sucked it up? America. Right? Not anymore. Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Because if they want to inject their venom, their poison, into our system, they're going to have to give us cure, meaning solid currency. Let me go a little further here. Again, the Federal Reserve is not setting the rules for the digital dollar. It's prohibited by law from even building one. The Federal Reserve still sets one rate. It's the overnight rate that banks charge each other for short-term loans. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to use a technical term, and hopefully there's no kids listening, but they still set one rate, and that rate is what banks charge each other. In other words, it's the circle jerk. That power hasn't been touched. But everything else matters in the financial system right now. Digital currency, enforcement, bank chartering, debt management, sanctions, and now yield curve management is being done by the Treasury. They've been neutered. The Fed has no huevos. Ya no. Ya no. The Fed wasn't fired. The Fed wasn't overruled. The Fed was routed around. It's like you're a farmer. You got a big stump. in the field taking more time and effort to tear it out than it would just go around it, right? Just go around it. That's what effectively occurred. Nobody revoked its authority. Nobody amended the Federal Reserve Act. Imagine how much time and effort that would take. They just built the entire next generation of financial architecture in agencies the Fed doesn't control, using laws the Fed doesn't administer, and then banned the Fed from the one new area where it might have reasserted itself, issuing money. They're done. They're done. Barry says, are central banks going with the Fed? Yeah, they are the Fed, essentially. They all tie into each other. So you have the Federal Reserve here in America, which goes into the International Monetary Fund, which is international, as you can imagine. And then finally is the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. And that's it. But that's the web of corruption that we're all entangled in. Apparently, patriots have just said, hey, that's a nice web you got there. We're going to go this way. Do what you want, Federal Reserve. Do what you want. What's the middle one? And then your Bank of International Settlements, right? Do what you want. Again, I'm going to use this term. It's a circle jerk. It's not going anywhere. Because we're over here, right? We're going forward. We're going to be kicking ass. And they're going to be doing this. The death loop. Barry says that's who runs them. Oh, well, certainly. But they don't run us anymore. They don't run us anymore. They don't run the U.S. monetary system anymore. To me, you know what that means? It means we are yet again, thank God, the city on a hill. What do I mean by that? I mean, we can be the example for other nations. Wow. We can be the example for other nations. They can send their envoys over here, representatives of their very own treasuries, not privately owned Federal Reserve stooges. And our guys can say, hey, this is what you do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Freedom! Right? I might be jumping ahead a bit, but I like to try and think of consequences due to actions. And these are good consequences. If we can be that light on a hill, man, that city on a hill. So, and there's still a little bit more here. Nobody revoked its authority. You just went around it. Why gold moved? The market saw the doubled buyback and did the math. I'm reading again from the Debriefing 17. If Treasury is buying its own bonds to manage interest rates, and Treasury is also creating a new class of mandatory bond buyers through stable coin rules. Remember, ladies and gents, let me add this. This is not him. This is me. Stable coins work on a blockchain. You can't just print them in the middle of the night. You can't send them on a pallet to Iran. Billions of dollars that are digital. And if you want to say, oh, yeah, but somebody can hack it. No. Yeah, but they can go there. Well, maybe they go there or there. But it's a blockchain, ladies and gents. It is completely traceable. The origin, the destination, the transaction, traceable. Every single one. Now, does that mean there's not going to be corrupt individuals in the government that could, yes, of course. But now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Let me keep this on the macro, and we'll dive into the micro when we need to. But if Treasury is buying its own bonds to manage interest rates, and the Treasury is also creating a new class of mandatory bond buyers through stablecoin rules. Stablecoin rules in this case mean money issuers, which has been a monopoly of the Federal Reserve since 1913, issuing the US dollar. Now it's not going to be a monopoly, right? The government's going to control the criteria, the licensing, the Treasury is, of issuers of US dollar. But it's not going to be a monopoly. What does that mean? Competition. Competition. Not only competition to see who can do a better and more efficient job of it, but competition that they're going to be watching each other. Hey, they're cheating. Treasury steps in. Boom, you're no longer a money issuer. So, to continue, the foreign governments are selling, mandatory bond buyers through stablecoin rules, and foreign governments are selling, then the buyer of last resort for American government debt is becoming the American government itself, plus private companies that are required by law to hold it. If private companies are required by law to hold American debt, do you think they're invested in America? Do you think a Chinese company is going to care about holding American debt? No. American companies do. We like our cash. Yeah, me too, Barry. Me too. Let's see if we have an answer for that. Let's see if there's going to be, and I pray there is, instead of a Federal Reserve note, burning a hole in our pocket on a Saturday night, maybe it'll be a Treasury note, Barry. Just maybe. Remember, the Treasury, it's the U.S. Mint under the Treasury, issues real money right now. What do I mean? Gold and silver coins, the Liberty coins, are issued by the U.S. Mint, which is under the Treasury, and it's real money. Real U.S. dollars. The Federal Reserve, on the other hand, prints funny money, and they call it the Federal Reserve note. It says U.S. dollar on there, but it's also Federal Reserve note. I got one somewhere around here. Yeah, one. But we do want cash, don't we, Barry? We do like that. It is a freedom that we don't want to give up, right? So now that you bring that up, I do believe, and I've always hoped for, a Treasury note. A Treasury note as opposed to a Federal Reserve note. Wow, this show's gone quick, everybody. I'm coming to the end of this. It's really good stuff. Really good stuff. I'll see what I can do about posting I'll comment on the video and I'll post the link here so you guys can check this out on your own speed, at your own leisure. Gold is the asset that sits outside the entire system. You can't sanction it. You can't freeze it. You can't require anyone to hold it as reserves. It doesn't need a license, a charter, or a reciprocal arrangement, does gold. $820 billion moved into gold and silver in hours. That is the market saying, we need the architecture being built, and we're buying the one thing that isn't inside it. Let me say that again. That is the market saying, we see the architecture being built, and we're buying the one thing that isn't inside it. That's diversification, ladies and gentlemen. That is diversification. We're all going to be part of the new system. Well, I mean, we don't have to. We could keep getting ripped off with the Federal Reserve note, I guess. But no sane person's going to do that. But how do you keep them honest? You buy gold and silver. Real money. Barry says, what if I can't buy groceries if the computers go down? Need my cash. Good point. Good point. So, again, this is burgeoning. This is just the initial stages of this. So, if we're trying to spread the good news about how the Fed is being rerouted or routed around, well, then maybe we can inject this too. Maybe we can start a movement. Hey, let's not give up our cash, guys. Let's not lose sight of this. Completely digital is, not realistic. It's not good. Okay? Especially when you got those stinking windmills out there. Those stinking solar panels that don't work. All that garbage is out there. Is the grid going to go down? That's why energy infrastructure is of the utmost importance. Pepe, how you doing? Looking good, my friend. We need more info on Bitcoin because paper money is going to be gone, right? Second freeze is coming, right? Maybe, but Bitcoin is good. But again, and I'm going to speak to Barry's, and Bitcoin's not going to die because there's going to be power somewhere. And there's a ledger. That's what Bitcoin is, a ledger of all transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. We will also have a ledger of all transactions on all stable coins because, again, it's blockchain. And not all computers in the world are going to go down. But to Barry's point, what happens if we don't have cell phones working? Let's say there's a storm. Worse yet, an attack, an EMP attack or whatever. But let me use the easier one. What if there's a storm? What if it just doesn't work? What if the banks, well, we don't need the banks. I'll get to that next show. We won't need them because you're going to be the bank. I'm going to be the bank. Screw the bank. However, to Barry's point, we don't want to go trading chickens for eggs or potatoes. The barter system, we don't want to go back to that. We want cash. We want cash. So my hope is that the Treasury will issue a US dollar, US Treasury note backed by assets. And once we pay off that stinking debt that isn't ours, once it gets paid off, we can back the US dollar with real assets, gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever. Let me see here. What do we got? The bottom line, okay? We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. Might go a little bit over, but not much. The bottom line. For 75 years, the Federal Reserve was the most powerful financial institution in America. It sets interest rates. It regulated banks. It managed the money supply. It was independent by design, insulated from the political pressures that the Treasury Department answers to. What happened this week is not the end of the Federal Reserve. The Fed still sets the overnight rate. That matters. But everything else, the digital dollar, the debt buybacks, the bank charters, the enforcement actions, the sanctions, the stable coin rules, the financial architecture of the next 50 years is being built by the Treasury. One department, one secretary reporting to one president. The Federal Reserve is watching. Timelines, patterns, general words, not mine. All I did was read the receipts. I am the guy on the couch, and you have been debriefed, says debrief, the debriefing 17. So, Jaime, yeah, whatever. Jaime and his weekly distraction is not going to keep us from the Fed is dead talk. And you know what? It's not really dead. We, ladies and gentlemen, are just taking the controls back. Right? It's about time. It's about time. We're going to have real money. And we're going to be the arbiters of that real money. Right? We the people. Remember maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you want to be inspired, go back to the 2016 inaugural address of Donald J. Trump. Watch the military men come from behind him. Watch them disappear. What did he say in that speech? And when did the military men come? When he said, we are giving power back to the people. Pepe, Federal Reserve is not going to be able to print more money for bank to get the side as last time. Yes. So the bank is going to get out money to help themselves because Trump's not going to help them. Right. And here's the thing, Pepe and everybody else that's still around, or if you're listening in the future, we don't have to play anymore. They're reindeer games. So if enough of us no longer use Federal Reserve notes or bank in their institutions, well, yeah, that's it. They're not going to make their money. They're going to die a natural death. Pepe, sorry I butchered my question. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You were doing it quickly. We're nearing the end of the show, and I appreciate all of you guys being here. These are good questions. Let's start brush fires in the minds of patriots. A lot of people are down, guys. We suffer through it, I know, sometimes, right? But when we find something like this that we can grab onto and gain a little bit of inspiration from, why not share it? Why not share it? Let me go to go out. Let me go to the verse of the day. Because ultimately, the only thing that is worthy of all hope and faith is the Word of God. He came to this earth and gave us an instruction manual. Why don't we read it? A million reasons. I suffer from many myself. Check this out. Psalm 16, verse 8. I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Ladies and gents, let's do our best not to be shaken. What does that mean? It means that for all what we've just discussed, greatness and change and all that, we should not put our faith in governments. We should not put our faith in people. We put our faith in God. And if you have God before you, in front of you in many different ways, and then it says, because he's at my right hand always denotes power. What is your power? We don't have much. We're humans. God has it, all of it. I will not be shaken, says the human. I say that. And you can say that too. Amen, my friend, says Pepe. God bless you, brother, says Barry. And God bless you all. May God bless you. May God bless your families. And what do you and your families make up? What do we and our families make up? America. God bless America. Thank you for watching. Be it now live or in the future. May God bless you, your family, and God bless America. The Otter's out. See you next week.